1 in 3 books get destroyed without ever being read simply because they don't sell fast enough. That's 10 million trees cut down for no reason at all. You don't have to be super environmentally friendly to see how wasteful that is. I started Lost Island Press back in 2020 with the publication of my debut novel, Leaving Wishville. And like many publishers and indie authors who are just getting their foot in the game, I didn't fully understand the financial risk involved in making your books available to bookstores for purchase. Not until May 2023. When I received an invoice from Ingram for $171.64. This was especially odd because usually Ingram would pay Lost Island Press, not the other way around. Ingram has one of the largest networks of booksellers in the publishing industry. Its catalog has over 14 million titles available to retailers at wholesale discounts. This means that stores can buy books through Ingram for cheap and sell them in order to make a profit. For publishers and indie authors who want any shot at getting their books into physical locations, it's pretty much a given that you need to be in the Ingram catalog. When I was first setting up our titles, I was presented with 3 different types of return options. I read some articles about it and watched some YouTube videos, and the general conclusion was make sure to select return and destroy if you want any chance of getting your books stocked in stores. In this case, the bookstore could ship any unsold copies back to Ingram, and then Ingram would destroy them. I would only be responsible for covering the wholesale price of these books, and no shipping charges or any charges for the destruction of the book. What a deal! This invoice was a result of a bookstore returning 20 copies of one of our Lost Island Press titles. This resulted in a publisher compensation deduction of $312. Profits from other books offset part of that amount, so we were charged for the remaining $171. I know a $312 deficit isn't a huge number in the publishing industry, but as you can see, it did sink the ship for that month. I don't even want to think about what these numbers might look like for big publishers who have plenty of zeros tacked on. They may be able to stomach losses like this, but even at scale, it doesn't really seem like a smart business decision, does it? There is absolutely nothing that is stopping a bookstore from buying way more books than they know they can sell and then returning them. Actually, if someone wanted to sabotage a particular publisher, that's really all they would have to do is buy books and return them over and over and over again. After some thought, I decided that the risks involved in being stocked in physical bookstores just wasn't worth it. I figured it would be smarter to focus on online sales, and guess what? Every month since I made this choice has been in the green, because we have no returns. But that's not the end of the story, because after the whole fiasco, I was left with 2 lingering questions. Why are authors and publishers financially responsible for stock they didn't purchase themselves? And what exactly happened to those 20 Lost Island Press books that were sent back to Ingram for destruction? The answers to these questions really shocked me and inspired me to write this video. It has been a long time in the making. I wanted to make sure I did as much research as possible, and my general conclusion is that there is a big, dark secret in the publishing industry. Let's say you run a shoe store. You buy 100 pairs at wholesale price, but you only sell 50 of them. That sucks for you. That's how most industries work. The responsibility of selling the product is on you, not who you purchased your stock from. Publishing is the one exception in which the retailer has all the power. If you don't allow returns, stores simply aren't going to stock your book. And I can't exactly blame them. Why would they buy a book they can't return and get their money back on when Ingram has over 14 million books in their catalog, most of which do allow returns? How did we end up in this situation where booksellers always get the better end of the stick? It turns out that allowing returns really started during the Great Depression. It was a way for publishers to encourage bookstores to stay in business during a time of financial hardship, and ever since then the practice has just stuck. I am not the first person to criticize this model. I found tons of horror stories on Reddit of people who have lost a lot more money because of these return policies. Scammers are even capitalizing on the paranoia of small publishers and indie authors by claiming they can protect them from returns. A lot of people end up turning off returns as well once they start losing money and facing the reality of how this whole system works. However, this is more of a self-preservation move than a rebellious one. In order for this to change, we need powerful players with high-demand books to disable returns, and big publishers have proven that they're not going to budge on this. According to a 2005 article published in the Wall Street Journal, a leading publisher in the 1980s called Harcourt ended their return policy. As an incentive for booksellers to continue to buy from them, they offered bigger discounts on their books, but even so, the booksellers refused to bite. They responded by cutting their orders and essentially boycotting this publisher. 1 year later, Harcourt re-enabled returns. The article also mentioned Thomas Burke, the founder of a small book and calendar publisher. He decided in 2004 that he wasn't going to accept returns anymore. The article ends by stressing that his choice alone isn't going to make a difference in the publishing industry as a whole. Burke himself said, "It won't create a ripple." 2 decades have passed since then, and nothing has changed on the state of book returns. I really hope it does, though, because it has more than just a financial effect. And I have some moral gripes with the way books are destroyed as well, which I will talk about in just a moment.
And now, a message from our sponsor.
Which is me, promoting Lost Island Press. We print all of our books on demand or in small batches, so no copies are ever destroyed. Right now, we're doing a limited run of our first collector's edition for my novel Nightshade Academy. In the story, 20 teenagers are selected to train at a military boarding school, and only 5 will graduate as elite soldiers. Check it out, I'll have a link in the description below. It's got sprayed edges and a beautiful blue cloth cover, and a ribbon, of course. I'm in love with it. We're only taking orders for the next 7 days, and then production will start at our UK printing partner in England, and they will be shipped here to me to be signed and sent out to arrive before Christmas. In order from most common to least common, these are the 3 main ways that books are destroyed. Pulping. Books are shredded into pulp and then recycled into new paper products. Dumping. If pulping isn't cost-effective due to transport, volume, or the materials the books are made of, then they will instead be sent to landfills. Sometimes even books that are recyclable do still end up in landfills for these economical reasons. Incinerating. This usually happens at waste-to-energy plants or as a last resort disposal method. Sometimes burning is just faster and cheaper than the other options. So which of these methods did Ingram use to destroy the Lost Island Press books that were returned? I will never know, because they don't disclose this information anywhere on their website. But no matter how these books die, the sad part about it is that they were never read. The existence of these books feels a little pointless, and the death of the trees that went into producing these books also feels pointless. Words Rated, which conducts research studies into books and literature, found that each year, around 10 million trees are killed for the reduction of books that eventually end up getting destroyed rather than read. That's 10 million trees cut down for no reason at all. In order to address this environmental concern, big publishers like Hachette, HarperCollins, and Macmillan have made efforts to reduce their carbon footprint, mainly by purchasing paper made with recycled materials. There's this ongoing effort right now to make books 100% recyclable. But according to a survey in 2022 of US publishing respondents, there are many hurdles standing in the way of making this happen. Here's a crazy idea. Why not print less books? Clearly, this is an overproduction problem, and I argue that booksellers and this return policy standard are the source of it all. Yes, bookstores demand volume so that their shelves look pretty. And yes, returns give bookstores buying power, which help them succeed. It's a tough business for them too. But why is it so hard to be a bit more realistic with numbers here? Why not have smaller bookstores with less shelving space to fill? Why not make return policies stricter to also protect indie authors and small publishers from paying for books that they didn't even buy in the first place? If bookstores didn't have the option to send back anything they don't sell, they would need to be a lot more careful about what they buy and how much they buy. And the last point that I wanted to bring up is less factual and a bit more emotional. It's been kind of a point of controversy in the Reddit threads that I've been scrolling through over the past couple of weeks. Some people believe that it's completely fine to destroy books in the same way a grocery store will throw out expired goods, and they also argue that a book is not the same as an original piece of art or a sculpture. It is a copy, and therefore it is fine to dispose of it. But I personally feel that there is still value to these goods. Books don't have an expiration date. They are meant to last years and even decades, and yet we're treating them as though they are perishable goods. If this overproduction problem is going to persist, Why not find a better way to make use of these books that don't sell? Why don't we send them to schools or libraries or secondhand bookstores? I just don't think that they need to go to waste so soon. But what can I say? I'm a bit emotional about this because books are my entire world, and it really sucks to see how easily they are treated like trash.
Lost Island Press. Get lost.